Great news. There is a bill now sitting in Congress. It's H.R. 899 to abolish and terminate the U.S. Department of Education, introduced by Congressman Thomas Massie. He says there is no constitutional authority for this silly bureaucracy to even exist. And of course, top Republicans, Ronald Reagan, for example, and Donald Trump have all called for abolishing the Department of Education. It just hasn't gotten done. So this bill is actually really, really simple. One of the simplest bills I've ever seen. It's one sentence long. It says the Department of Education shall terminate on December 31st, 2023. In other words, in less than 1 year, this behemoth would have to stop all operations, and that would then kick control over education to the states, local communities, and of course, we the people. Congressman Massie actually announced this on February 14th. That was Valentine's Day, but he's been working on this for a very long time. In fact, for several Congresses, he's introduced this. When he introduced it in the last Congress, he said that unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. should not be in charge of our children's intellectual and moral development. Wow, you think? He says states and local communities are best positioned to shape curricula that meet the needs of their students. Schools should be accountable. Parents have the right to choose the most appropriate educational opportunity for their children, including, he says, and I love this, homeschools, public school, or private school. Actually, I was able to talk with Congressman Massie about this and other things a few years ago, and he had some really interesting things to say. He pointed out that this was a re-election ploy by Jimmy Carter, and he really put liberals in an awkward position, forcing them to defend Trump involvement in their children's education if they wanted to keep it. Watch.
So, first of all, the Department of Education was established by Jimmy Carter as a re-election tactic, as a ploy. And it's been part of Ronald Reagan's platform and the Republican platform to eliminate the Department of Education. But I saw an opportunity to reintroduce this notion, and as a bill, when everybody got upset about Betsy DeVos's confirmation. That was the last controversial confirmation, was the Secretary of Education, because the left understands this is where you win or lose, is in the schools and in the teaching of the children. Mm-hmm. So I got a lot of phone calls from constituents and frankly liberals all over the country who wanted me to vote against Betsy DeVos. Well, there's only one problem with that. I'm in the House, I'm not in the Senate, so the Senate has the power of advice and consent according to the Constitution. So my staff would tell the callers, and there were lots of callers, he doesn't get to vote on that. Well, the callers would insist that I was passing the buck, that there was something I could do, and that I must do something. So I wrote a one-page bill, and it says, the Department of Education shall terminate on December 31st, 2018. And I introduced that the day they were voting on her confirmation. That was my effort that they asked of me.
Yeah, so that was pretty funny. I love Congressman Massie. Fantastic comments there. Now, he's joined by at least 8 other congressmen here. He's got the former chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, U.S. Representative Andy Biggs. He's got Russ Fulker of Idaho, Mike Collins of Georgia, Lauren Boebert of Colorado, Dan Bishop of North Carolina, and Chip Roy of Texas. And folks, if you've been watching this program for a while, if you have been following these issues, you know that the Department of Education has been a critical driver of the radicalization of our so-called public school system and also the dumbing down of American children. In fact, my late friend Charlotte Iserby, a wonderful lady, she was the senior advisor on education in the Ronald Reagan administration. And once she got to the Department of Education, she found all these documents that they're like trying to merge the American educational system with the Soviet one. She leaked all this to the press. Obviously didn't last very long there, but she then wrote a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, exposing how this was happening. Also, U.S. parents involved in education. Duke and I both serve on the advisory board there. It's a national grassroots group to end all federal involvement in education. They really celebrated this bill. The president, Sherry Few, told me that now more than ever, parents and other freedom-loving Americans see the nefarious influence of the U.S. Department of Education and want to end its unconstitutional authority over education. She's right. Americans are really starting to see this. She did say that this would be a first big step, but that much more needs to be done. And the organization, US PI, has a blueprint to make that happen because, as she pointed out correctly, there's a lot of other federal departments that deal with this issue as well. But ultimately, folks, while shutting down the Department of Education is long long overdue. It's unconstitutional. It's unwise. The best thing you can say about it is a huge waste of money, but it's actually much worse than that. But the reality is, even shutting this down is not going to make a public school safe for your child. Parents are going to have to take charge here, make sure their children get a real education.